You know the score. Stay in control. Gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-858-858 or your local state gambling helpline.
9 podcasts.
This is Six Tackles with Gus, with Matthew Thompson and Gus Gould.
Hello, welcome to a special episode of Six Tackles with Gus, looking back at State of Origin 2 from Suncorp Stadium last night. Queensland securing the 2023 series with a big win in front of a raucous home crowd. Phil Gould, welcome.
Matthew, how are you doing?
Very good. I'm still here in sunny Brisbane and you're in even sunnier Townsville.
Yes, flew up to Townsville this morning for the Women's State of Origin tonight. Of course, Queensland lead 1-0 in that series, in the two-game series. New South Wales needs to win by 9 points or more to carry the shield this evening. So they've got their work cut out, but there were plenty of promising signs in Game 1 to suggest that they could possibly do that this evening.
Indeed, yes. Or alternatively, it might be 2 wins from 2 for Queensland. Obviously, a comprehensive victory for the host state last night. Before we dissect everything that went wrong with New South Wales, I think it's really important to talk about the professionalism and the resilience and the dogged nature of the Queensland team, which shone through again. Last night, the Blues had plenty of opportunities to challenge them, but Queensland are too good in the end.
They certainly were, and they've had a perfect preparation, not just for this one, but for the Adelaide game. They're perfectly prepared. They were able to win that first game of the series and give them the opportunity to come home in front of their Queensland fans and wrap up the series last night, and they made no mistake. They named their team first last Monday. They got everyone into camp 24 hours before New South Wales started their campaign. No hiccups during the camp, no injured players not training. They got themselves ready and put in a 5-star performance last night. There was really meticulous the way they went about their work. It was a complete Origin performance from a very well-coached team and a team full of talent, a very young team that's going to be around for a long time, a lot of those players.
Yeah, I may mention that in the call last night, and just having a look through the team list here, Reece Walsh is 20, Xavier Coates' early 20s, Val Holmes is the veteran of that three-quarter line, if you will. I think he's 27, the Hammer's 21, Murray Taulungi's 23. I mean, Cameron Munster's only touching 30. Daly Cherry-Evans is 34, but they seem to have a ready replacement with Tom Dearden there. Tino Fa'asua-Mala'awi's 23. Flegler's only young. Fafita's young. Cotter and Carrigan in their second Origin series, respectively. So the nucleus of the team that Billy has won the last 2 series with will be together for some time to come.
Yeah, as I said last year and again in Adelaide, and it was exemplified again last night, it's a brilliant Origin team, a very typical Queensland side. Very hard-working forwards who just go about their duties diligently. They've got experienced, creative halves. And in Cherry-Evans and Munster, I thought they were the real calming influence last night. They were under pressure for long periods of time there, the Queenslanders, but whenever they got possession, they handled it perfectly. They got the ball to the other end of the field. Their fifth tackle options were very, very good. And when they got the opportunities to attack, they didn't miss. They really took New South Wales defence apart and came up with some nice tries. So Cherry-Evans and Munster were key in that. So too the 2 hookers in Ben Hunt and Harry Grant. They just fitted in nicely. The young boy at the back, Reece Walsh, I've been saying for a number of years, is a superstar. He will be the Queensland fullback for the next decade. I know people will ask about Kalen Ponga, who too is a very, very good player. But Reece Walsh is a superstar, and he's going to be a thorn in the side of New South Wales for a long time to come. And then you've got these really slick outside backs who are so quick and so opportunistic, and they don't miss when they get their opportunities, and they didn't again last night. So it's a great-looking team. The key will be over the next few years what they do in the halves, but Munster's got at least another 3 or 4 years in him. Daly Cherry-Evans probably another 12 months, but there are young halves coming through the system for Queensland anyway. New South Wales needs to get busy about creating their next new team.
Well, Cherry-Evans wound back the clock with a vintage performance last night. We'll dissect it all, but a top-line comment on New South Wales.
They look very disjointed. It was obviously a difficult preparation. They didn't name their side till Tuesday. When they got in there was 3 players that couldn't train all week. Liam Martin had concussion protocols. Cameron Murray had groin issues. And I'm just wondering as to whether or not he was completely 100% given we didn't use him for so long in the game. And I guess most of us would have expected he'd have been the likely replacement in the centres had Tom Trbojevic gone down. It was my understanding that that was the likely coverage for an outside back. Again, they rolled the dice. They went with 2 hookers, and this is where you make your gamble in Origin about how many positions you can cover. You know, in series past, you've got a Steve Menzies, you've got an Angus Crichton, or you've got a forward who can actually fill in as a centre if an outside back goes down, and that helps you a little bit. But we probably don't have a player of that ilk at the moment available for New South Wales who can do both. So in game 1, they took Nico Hines, who they thought could cover all the halves, maybe cover fullback, cover hooker if he had to, maybe even play at lock forward. The last of those options for him is to play in the centre, and that's where he played his 10 minutes of Origin football. And his opposite number scored the winning try. So this time they decided to go with the 2 hookers and cover an outside back loss at some stage of the game. I would have thought with a Cameron Murray, it happened in the first couple of minutes. Tom Trbojevic has unfortunately torn his pec muscle. It was a thunderbolt from nowhere, and they've gone to the extraordinary measure of putting Damien Cook out there, which means they actually lost 2 players. They lost Tom Trbojevic, who was going to be an attacking weapon, but you now lose your big plan for the game, was when to inject Cook into dummy half and start playing the game down the middle part of the field using his speed, which I'm sure was in their plan to run them around a little bit and then have Damien Cook come on level, let Reece Robson start the game. So Reece Robson's gone into the game thinking he's probably going to play the first 20 minutes. Now he's got to pace himself through his Origin debut for 80 minutes. Damien Cook has been thinking all week about getting injected into the game and running the game from the middle of the field and finding tired forwards around the middle. He's now out in the centres, dealing with these fast outside backs, and New South Wales loses so much in its interchange and so much in its strategy. It was I guess they had their reasons for it, and I'd imagine they're going to be quizzed about it, but it just seemed an unlikely solution to a big problem. Now, probably they thought maybe, they're looking at a headwind for 15 minutes, or maybe at the back end of the game if someone gets hurt. No one envisaged a player going down in the first couple of minutes of the game and having to play 78 minutes out there. And unfortunately, that's what happened for New South Wales. Other than that, they just looked naturally disjointed because our playmakers hadn't played together before. Reece Robson on debut, Mitchell Moses came into the squad for this game. Jerome Luai plays all his football exclusively with Nathan Cleary, and the fullback James Tedesco really hasn't played much footy with any of them. So our playmaker group compared to Queensland just looked disjointed. That, I think, ate away at their confidence. It was hard to find, attacking-wise, what our real focus was. There was plenty of ball movement and plenty of passing, but I was trying to see, what's our strategy? And it didn't make itself available. I think the pressure of the situation, Queensland's great defence, which we've got to give them credit. In both games, they've defended on their try line for long periods of time and turned New South Wales away. But last night, there didn't appear to be a great deal of clarity to their attack, and I put that down to the fact that they just haven't played together and probably didn't have long enough together in preparation. I think it was a disjointed preparation. They gave as best as they could, but they just couldn't get across the line, and that eventually ate away at their confidence. And once that happens, particularly when you're up there in Queensland in front of their crowd, and I've got to say the crowd was outstanding last night. The crowd at Suncorp Origins is getting better. They're getting louder. They're getting more confident. And it's the thing about Queensland. I mean, I've been out to the airport this morning and I've flown up here to Townsville, and in my short time up here in Townsville, Queensland is just so together at the moment, not only on the field but off the field. The whole, you get around Brisbane yesterday and everyone looking forward to the Origin. Everyone's got their maroon on. And even today, everyone's got their maroon on. They're all full of smiles. New South Wales, on and off the field, has got a lot of work to do to claw back some ground here. We're off the pace.
I went to a shopping centre just before, and You know how you put your ticket in the machine when you're leaving the car park and it gives you a little message on departure? Usually it's like, have a nice day.
Yeah,
It's a go Queensland.
go Queensland.
I'm not kidding. I just
Look, the
laughed.
whole state's got to tack together around Origin. I mean, it's just so huge up here. That's what I say to people. You know, you can go to an Origin game anywhere in the country, and it's a great event. It doesn't matter where we take it, Perth or Adelaide or, you know, down there in Sydney, Melbourne. We go to plenty of places with Origin, but you haven't experienced Origin until you've been to Suncorp Stadium. You haven't really experienced what it's like to play Origin until you come to Suncorp Stadium. I said this last year when we came up here for the decider. Even though we won game 2 by a big, big score, everyone thought, oh, that roll over into the decider. Completely different atmosphere up here, completely different Queensland mentality. Queensland just handled their whole preparation and everything so well. Tactically, they were very strong. Defensively, they were brilliant. You know, real Queensland backs to the wall type defence. Their forwards work so hard for each other. Their outside backs are quick. I've got to give a lot of credit to those two halves, very experienced players and passionate Queenslanders in Cherry Evans and Munster. And it was no surprise when Crichton got that ricochet and picked up the ball and ran 80 metres down the sideline. It was the two old blokes chasing him, Munster and Cherry Evans. They had the angle a little bit, but still a great chase there from Cherry Evans to get across there and make that tackle.
Yeah. I know Brad shied away from questions about his future last night, but he has indicated that if New South Wales were to lose, he probably realises that it might be time for him to move on. He's coached 6 series and he doesn't want to address that until after game 3, and I suppose we'll respect that. But with a new coach comes an opportunity to put together a new team, and Brad did that when he took over in 2018. You remember the first game? Look, there were 11 or 12 new players, and then Billy Slater's been able to come in and start his tenure with a new team and give Queensland a fresh start. Is it time for the Blues to be thinking about new blood here, and do they start in game 3?
So far as players, it'll be interesting, you know, if there is to be a new coach or if Brad Fittler continues, it'll be interesting to see what tack they take. You know, I wouldn't be panicking too much. I've been a little concerned, you know, over the last decade, and particularly around COVID period and what I've seen about the development of rugby league in our state over the last few years. Other than the Panthers, there hasn't really been any other NRL club with a strong development program that's bringing through players that can represent our state. You know, we have such a high percentage of Pacific Island in our registration in all our junior league and junior rep teams and that sort of thing, and many of those choose to play for New Zealand or play for Pacific Island nations. The Panthers have produced the bulk of this New South Wales side now for a couple of years, and deservedly so, because they've been winning premierships and they're the best team in the competition. But I'm trying to look at another pocket of youngsters coming through as to who's going to produce the next range of Origin stars. And right at the moment, we can find alternative players, but whether or not they're going to produce a better team, I just don't know at the moment. You make mass changes to this one for game 3 as some sort of experiment. I think you just hand the 3-0 victory straight back to Queensland. Yeah, they're in a tight situation. You know, you would really have to sit down and look at what's coming through, what would be ready to throw into this environment, and then how long you're going to give them to find their feet to be able to compete with this Queensland side, which, as we've pointed out, is young, and the bulk of it is going to be together for a long time. It's a scary situation. We know what Queensland did to us for a decade there, a decade of excellence. Brad Fittler turned it around. He's won 3 of his first 4 series, and now this will be 2 in a row that they've lost. So his coaching record is actually excellent for Origin standards. I mean, he's coached 6 series and won 3 series. That's as good as any New South Wales coach can do at the moment. And, yeah, but it'll be interesting to see how he sees this. I felt last night he was very nervous going into that game last night. I guess he knew that they were up against it. He was confident in the team he picked. And they tried hard. I think as individuals, they tried really hard. But as a team, they just didn't gel quite well enough on the night. And as the game wore on, the frustration of not being able to score and then getting further behind on the scoreline. If you're struggling to score tries and then suddenly you find yourself 2 and 3 tries behind, then it becomes overwhelming, and it overwhelmed them last night.
Yeah. Darren Lockyer down on the sideline a number of times, and I suppose in relation to Lindsay Collins, it was just phenomenal. And Tino jumping on loose balls, and Queensland's kick chase all night was relentless. But he kept commenting about the effort areas, Queensland turning up in numbers, and that's key to their approach towards Origin football. And on the same token, he lamented a lack of New South Wales effort in some areas. Did you see that? And I'm wondering how in Origin you can have a lack of effort. I mean, the whole thing's based on effort.
Yeah, well, that's the history of Origin. That's right there, and that's why Queensland very, very rarely get it wrong. I think at times New South Wales doesn't quite hit the mark around Origin or the importance, the major important things in Origin. It's an effort-based game. It's a team-based game. And there are certain things that you need to do well if you're going to match this Queensland side, because they always do them well. And those things you talked about, kick chase and falling on loose balls and support play and getting up when you're hurt, running when you're tired, talking when you're under pressure, backs to the wall type efforts, shoulder to shoulder defence. This has been the hallmark of Queensland for 4 decades. Every now and then New South Wales gets it right. And when they do, sometimes the talent can take over, but sometimes we don't. And if you've got a lot of changes, or there's conjecture around our team, or we're bringing players in that are a little bit underdone, or we've got inexperienced combinations, sometimes the focus gets on strategy and game plans and gets away from effort areas. Queensland don't necessarily have that big a strategy in their game. They play their own brand of Origin football, which is to win all these effort-based areas and then rely on the experience of their playmakers and the speed of their outside backs to get the points when they come. The forwards just work away like soldiers the whole time. They're not there to be stars. They're not there to score tries. They're not there to do anything other than to keep winning collisions, keep winning battles, keep making effort areas, support each other. You see them when they run on and off the field to replace each other. They high-five each other, and it's just like Bundy on, Bundy off. I'll go out and do it now. You go out and do it now. And they work so hard, and that's where it comes to the fore on their try line. The difference the whole series is that Queensland has been able to repel New South Wales for long periods of time on their try line, and New South Wales seems so brittle when the play gets to their own end of the field. And that's not through lack of effort. That's not through lack of desire. That's just lack of team-based mentality. That's communication and awareness. And it's hard for New South Wales to get that sometimes. It's not a criticism. It's not anyone's fault. It's hard for New South Wales. People don't understand that. They think they're professional footballers. They should get it right, but it's not. And that's what makes Origin so different and so special. And it's why Queensland have the success they do. And it goes back to the other comment I make. Queensland as a state is so together around Origin. It's so together. It's all about Queensland. Young Queenslanders grow up wanting to play for Queensland. This is the pinnacle of their career. We'd like to think it's like that for New South Wales, but not necessarily. It's an add-on to their career. It's a bonus to their career. Every now and then you get a select group that just get it right, and New South Wales can have some select success. But kind of since 2005, Queensland have been extremely dominant, and New South Wales have rarely hit the mark.
Gus, I find that comment quite startling. I've never really thought of that. That Origin's an add-on in the eyes of the New South Wales players. I mean, this is the pinnacle of the game. Do you base that on what you've heard from players, or is it just your observation?
It's my observation, and I remember, way back when I first started in Origin, it's what I felt. And when I first started watching Origin, you're a young person growing up in Queensland. Your aim is to play for Queensland. It's not to play for Australia. It's not to play for the Broncos or play for Cowboys or play for Gold Coast or now play for Redcliffe. That's not your number one goal. Your number one goal is to play for Queensland. That's the ultimate in your career. With New South Wales, I think it's a little bit different. You know, you want to play for the Panthers, you want to play for the Dragons, you want to play for the Eels, you want to play for Manly. You want to play anywhere in the NRL. It doesn't matter. You don't care. Just to get a run in the NRL. And gee, one day I'd like to play for Australia. And New South Wales is sort of the stepping stone to that. And that's how Queenslanders view it. That's what they play on. And New South Wales, I think, at times there's a fair bit of truth in that. I just don't know sometimes whether or not, we're as together as a state around Origin as we need to be. I don't think we'll ever be together as a state around Origin as what Queensland is. I say it regularly. Origin is about Queensland. If you want to know what New South Wales should do, observe Queensland. Watch Queensland. Not just on the field, but off the field. Watch Queensland. I don't think our state invests as heavily in that. And that's why it's Queensland's baby. It always has been. Origin is about Queensland. Every now and then New South Wales gets it right, and they might get it right for a while because they get a very special group of players that really buy into it. And I'm not saying that this group of players hasn't bought into it. They just haven't had enough time together to do it. They just haven't had enough time to gel as a combination, and they ran into a red-hot Queensland side this series. For large parts of Origin 1, and even large parts of the first half last night, they were well on top. Had the scoreboard ticked over with a couple of tries, it could well have been different. But and in saying all that, this is the morning after the game, and you're trying to find some answers. And New South Wales were dealt a couple of thunderbolts this week, and I just think it probably wasn't the perfect preparation for them. Out of their control, obviously, with injuries, and then the Trbojevic injury, and the way they decided to replace that, and the way the game unfolded. It was just a bit of a perfect storm for them. And in the end, 32-6 looks like a flogging. It didn't feel like a flogging leading up to half-time, but you kind of sensed if we weren't next to score in the second half, maybe it could get that way, and that's what unfolded.
Yeah. Quick one before we wrap up, and it's a special episode, obviously, just to get Gus's thoughts on what happened with Origin 2, but the contentious, in inverted commas, selection decisions by Billy was fullback, like you've mentioned, and we all know how brilliant Reece Walsh is. That play to put Coates over in the corner, that was just magnificent to watch. And the other one is the hammer, who they picked instead of Dane Gagai. If you were picking an Australian team today, they'd be two of the first blokes you'd pick. It's funny how things work out.
Well, to the victors go the spoils.
Yeah.
If Origin is a dress rehearsal for Test selection, then this team will be dominated by Queenslanders. I think there are very few New South Wales players that would earn a spot in the Australian side based on the two games that we've seen. Even incumbents would be struggling to hold their position, and I think they would acknowledge that as well. If Origin is to be a selection trial for the state, for the national team, and it should be, I can't imagine why a lot of those Queenslanders won't make the team.
Yeah. All right, so we head to a core stadium in Sydney for Origin 3. There's only been 7 3-0 results in the history of the Origin arena, and it's going to take something special for the Blues to stop Queensland, I would think.
Yeah, and there'll be some other forces at play here because, look, my attitude has always been is that every Origin you can win is a badge of honour, that you need to treat them all the same. We try to say that there is no such thing as a dead rubber. If we purely use this game as experimental, I think that's fraught with danger. The other thing is clubs start to get a little bit selfish then about their players partaking in these games, and you'll have a couple of players, I think, make themselves unavailable, which will be disappointing. It'll be interesting to see how what gets through the medical leading into the game 3 for both states. Whether, they've got a couple of club games to get through now and then get through their medicals. Queensland won game 1 and they had 3 changes for game 2. It's highly unlikely both sides will go around as per what happened last night. There'll be conjecture again as to whether Latrell Mitchell's available. what we're going to do. Do we start picking a team for the future, or do we try to pick a team to win this game? I'd like to think we pick a team to win this game and we worry about the future next year. But that's up to the coaching staff and to the selectors, and it might give us an indication as to whether or not Brad Fittler or the New South Wales Rugby League are going to persevere. If Brad's going to persevere into a seventh campaign, that might be reflected in the way he picks his team for Game 3. It'd be interesting to see how the next 48 hours plays out in that regard. But he's done a wonderful job, and right at the moment, Queensland are on top again. So New South Wales has got to find the answers.
Mm. All right, if you're listening to us today, Thursday, Women's Origin tonight from Queensland Country Bank Stadium. New South Wales needing to win by 9 points or more to bring a bit of silverware back from the year. Goodness me, they're extending the trophy cabinet at Suncorp.
Yeah, well, the runaway train at the moment, the Maroons, and as I say, I've only been in Townsville briefly. I've been at the airport, and I've got a cab out here to the hotel quarter here, and people walking around the streets outside there in their Maroon jerseys, all ready to go. And they're predicting a big crowd here tonight. I think they've sold about 12,000 tickets for the girls, and it'll be a great night here. Beautiful weather. It's nice to get some warm weather for a change up here. It's been freezing down there in Sydney, but looking forward to the game tonight, and then back for the weekend's round of football in the NRL.
Go and mingle with the Queenslanders, Gus. They love you.
I love Queensland. Just for the 6 weeks of the year, they're pretty hard to handle. Yeah. They're pretty hard to handle. They were nice to me at the airport this morning. It was all very...
Yeah, because they won.
They were in a good mood.
Because they won. All right, thanks, Gus, and enjoy the game tonight. We'll be back next Wednesday for 6 Tackles.
Bye for now.
You know the score. Stay in control. Gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-858-858 or your local state gambling helpline.